Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. 50 years ago today, India was having a deadly heat wave. The Canberra Times reported a temperature of 135 degrees Fahrenheit and 300 people dead. A week later, the Canberra Times reported that the death count had exceeded 500 people. But climatologists weren't talking about global warming, they were talking about global cooling in 1972. 42 top American and European climate investigators met at Brown University. They were so worried about the cooling trend that they sent a letter to President Nixon warning of glacial temperatures in about a century. We are halfway there in the year 2022 and the glaciers haven't appeared yet. But NBC News is reporting that deadly heat in India is something new and it's caused by the burning of fossil fuels. They said the temperature in India got up to 120 degrees and this was record-shattering. So according to NBC News, 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the year 2022 is hotter than 135 degrees 50 years ago. NBC News doesn't seem to know anything about the past, but they're very certain that they know the future. They say that the heat in India and around the world is only going to get worse. So let's go back in time to the year 1931 when Noel Coward wrote the song Mad Dogs and Englishmen. Noel Coward was referring to the heat in India, and he probably based the lyrics on a Rudyard Kipling quote from the year 1901. Kipling wrote in his novel Kim, "Only the devils and the English walk to and fro without reason, as we walk as though we were mad or English." Let's listen to some of the lyrics from Noel Coward's song.
Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. The Japanese don't care. To Chinese, wouldn't dare. To Hindus and Argentines, sleep firmly from 12 to 1. But Englishmen detest a siesta. You know, in the Philippines, they have lovely screens to protect you from the glare. In the Malay states, there are hats like plates, which the Britishers won't wear. At 12 noon, the natives swoon and no further work is done. But mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Oh, it's such a surprise for the Eastern eyes to see that though the English are effete, they're quite impervious to heat. When the white man rides, every native hides in glee, because the simple creatures hope he will impale his solar topi on the tree.
The point being that it's too hot in the midday sun in India for anyone other than mad dogs and Englishmen. So let's take a look at what else was going on in the year 1931. People in Australia and the United States were starving from the heat and drought. China was having the deadliest flood in history. 50,000 square miles of China was flooded and millions of people died. 1931 had the most extensive heat in U.S. history. 93% of the United States reached 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius sometime during the year in 1931. But over the last 90 years, that percentage has plummeted to record lows around 65% of the country. And the frequency of hot weather has also plummeted in the United States over the last 90 years. In 1936, one temperature reading out of every 10 in the United States was over 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius. Recent years have been near a record low with only about 4% of days above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The 1930s were the hottest and driest decade in U.S. history. And the heat and drought produced a record amount of burn acreage. According to the United States Forest Service, in 1930 and 1931, more than 50 million acres burned in the United States. Prior to 1955, more than 10 million acres burned pretty much every year, and during the 1930s they had more than 50 million acres burned. But now the press claims that 10 million acres which burned in 2020 is an all-time record, when in reality 10 million acres is closer to a record low. As is normally the case, the press is gaslighting the public with blatant misinformation. The climate of India has always been brutally hot and over 120 degrees. May 1935, 122 degrees and numerous deaths from heat. June 1935, 124 degrees and heavy toll of life from the heat. June 1934, 120 degrees and deaths from heat in India. June 1966, 120 degrees and hundreds dead from the heat in India. June 1932, deaths from heat in India. 1878, many dead Europeans from the heat in India. The Englishmen should have known better than to go out in the noonday sun. 10 million people in India died in that heat wave and famine, and in China the number was about 20 million. Nothing that NBC News is saying in this article has anything to do with science, climate, or reality. They want you to believe that springtime heat in India is something unusual. So let's take a look at temperatures in India to see which months are hot. The average January afternoon temperature at Bhopal is 77 degrees. In February, it's 83 degrees. In March, it's 93 degrees. The average April temperature at Bhopal, India is 102 degrees. During May, the average temperature is 106 degrees, and during June, it's down to 99 degrees. July is 87 degrees, and August is 84 degrees. So the hottest months in Bhopal, India are April and May. The entire NBC News article was disinformation designed to deceive the public. Bhopal, India was the site of one of the worst industrial disasters in history. 20 years ago, I was working with Hollywood producer Zach Coffin on a movie documenting what happened at Bhopal. It was a classic story about how people suffered and died as a result of government, industry, and press corruption. Zach is now a big Bollywood star, but the press is just as corrupt as they've always been. And when the press lies, people die. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on the climate scam for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.